acquiescing to BLM. It was not giving into BLM. It was we prayed with them, and then right after that, we physically removed them from Riverside.
And let's say it did happen. Let's say that that is what you did. That was your motivation, and that's exactly what did it gain you? What are they claiming it gained you? There doesn't seem to be. So people that criticize you and say that you bent the knee, if you did that, you didn't gain anything from that.
Welcome to The Warrior's Way, a podcast about your rights, your freedoms, and the mindset to protect both. I'm your host, Mark Skoglund. For nearly 2 decades, I served in law enforcement, including as a concealed carry weapons coordinator for one of the largest agencies in California. I've worked inside the system, seen what works, what doesn't, and where the public fails in the process. So I'm also the co-founder or founder, of CCW Solutions Group. And we have one simple goal, is to help law-abiding citizens and agencies navigate the concealed carry process legally and efficiently. So today's podcast is about honesty, personal responsibility, public safety, freedom, and lawful self-defense. So the Warrior's Way is not about fear. It's about preparation, education, clarity, and empowering responsible citizens with no talking points. So joining me today is Michael Schwartz from Gun Owners Radio. So Michael's been a trusted voice in the Second Amendment community for years, helping educate Californians in firearm laws, policy changes, and realities facing gun or lawful gun owners, always focusing on responsibility and education. So I want everyone to follow Mike. I encourage everyone to follow Mike on all his platforms. He's very educated, very knowledgeable on everything. And your support is vital for all of us as we continue to fight for our rights, to further our rights and our freedoms. And we really appreciate having you here today.
Yeah, thank you. It's truly an honor that you asked me to be here. And I'm really happy about our guest, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward.
Yeah, so we're very excited about our guest today. So our guest today, Sheriff Chad Bianco. So he's the elected sheriff of Riverside County, and he's providing leadership and safety to the 4th most populous county in the state of California. So Sheriff Bianco, he's going to talk a little bit about what he's done in his law enforcement career, but he began his law enforcement career more than 30 years ago and has built a reputation as a constitutional conservative, right? Public safety realist, and the leader willing to speak plainly when others won't. So under his leadership, Riverside County became the #1 concealed carry county in California, and we are grateful for that. And he's proving that public safety and constitutional rights are not competing values, they're complementary. So beyond his role as sheriff, Chad Bianco is now running for governor. He's a candidate for governor, and he is currently leading in numerous polls. And we're going to get into the polls here in a second. I'm going to have him share some information with us. But his campaign is focused on restoring public safety, respecting the Constitution, and really uniting Californians across all political platforms, culture lines, and just the shared values of safety, dignity, and freedom. So again, today's conversation isn't going to really be about sound bites. It's about leadership, responsibility, and what real safety looks like for all Californians. So thank you for being here, Sheriff Bianco.
Absolutely excited to be here.
So I know
great hosts.
Yeah, I know I just mentioned something. We were talking earlier about polls. You are leading in the majority of polls. Some of those polls obviously have skewed numbers, but
yeah,
I guess it depends on who puts them out.
Some of it. So there's a lot of the polls that are coming out that are legitimate, company-based, political analyst-based. They do normal polls, and those are really legitimate. Those are the big base. It's a wide range. They're getting the required number of people participating in the polls. Those are definitely ones we watch, ones that we keep track of. But the majority of them, they're all, I mean, I don't want to say they're close enough or anything like that. They're legitimate polls. Some are not. Some are, if you get a poll of 400 people, that's not really a legitimate poll. There's way too much margin of error in something like that. So the majority of the polls we follow, they're nationwide, they're tracked nationwide, and it's easy to keep track of them. And we've been fortunate. We knew going into this that California was ready for change. We honestly didn't expect that we were going to be this high in the polls, this early in the polls, and for this long in the polls. So really, for the last 4 months, I've been leading in all of the polls, 9 out of the last 11. And it's the last several have been really really good ones. The average polls, that's a good indicator too. I'm 3 points higher, 4 points higher than anyone else. So we're past the margin of error. So it's like, man, these are really getting better. The gap is widening, and it truly shows that people are looking for something different. It's that this everybody's talking about this blue state and everything else. It's not a blue state. We're moving away. You kind of mentioned it. I think that this election is going to be the first time in probably the history of California where there will be the far left and the far right that are voting right and left,
Right.
Republican and Democrat. But the rest of the state, the majority of the state is going to be voting for change, voting for common sense, voting for leadership. And that's really what we're seeing. This is about California now.
In a lot of ways, we really are a red state with a handful of blue cities.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're describing. And when you look at the polls and you weed out all the garbage polls or the bias polls, how do you guys as a campaign, how do you guys use polls? Like when you see the numbers, or you see the undecided numbers, you see you're in first place, whatever, like how do you actually use those as a tool?
It's just an overarching. It's not anything that you really stare at and it's like, oh my gosh. But you want trends. You want to know, like we go back to where the very first poll that they ever had. And then now you're going to, you're 15, 20 polls in, and what is the trend? And the good thing is my trend is always going up. And there's several that have been very, very telling. One in particular was a statewide poll, but then they went further and broke it down into location. And the biggest thing for us that we looked at was the Los Angeles market. The Los Angeles market, I'm leading. That doesn't happen for a Republican
You're leading over everyone in the LA market?
in the LA market.
That's pretty phenomenal.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So not only statewide, but the LA market. And that really shows that the message is resonating. People are looking for something different. We believe that, really getting into this and getting on that public safety background that I have, and then going on that platform is we're on the trail and on the heels of Prop 36. And Prop 36 passing 70% in every single county was phenomenal.
Prop 36 meaning letting the or keeping folks in jail longer.
Yes, making crime a crime again for the theft,
Right.
helping the homeless situation with mental illness. It's basically a bite at the apple of fixing Prop 47. Prop 47 from 2014 was the downfall of public safety, but Prop 36 is a little bite to get it back. We've got a lot to go, but Prop 36 in 2024, when that passed, a 70% win in an election is more than a landslide.
Oh yeah.
60% is a landslide. I mean, I don't know if there's something bigger, avalanche, or I don't know what we want to call it, but for
Tsunami.
the entire state, that was a statewide referendum on Sacramento to do something different. And then knowing that the governor and the legislature are purposely not advancing that agenda, I think that plays into my platform too, because I'm promising that. I mean, this is my wheelhouse of fixing public safety in California, and you have an agenda that's fighting it.
So I totally agree that it was a referendum and Prop 47 was such a mess, and LA has had so many problems. We've seen footage of Skid Row and what a tragedy that whole area is, and the fires. It's a no-brainer. It seems like it'd be a no-brainer. Like, hey, we got to figure out something else. We can't continue to go the same direction. But how do you reconcile the shellacking of Prop 50? Why did Prop 50 fail so significantly if everyone is ready for change?
That's unique. And I think it's two things. I think they got it. They orchestrated Prop 50 perfectly. They waited till the last absolute minute, quickly got it on the ballot with the minimum amount of days. I think they even went a couple under the minimum amount of days. So it's supposedly it's anti-constitutional, against the Constitution, the rules, but it flied. The Supreme Court ruled it's all over. And then the messaging, the money that they put toward it and the messaging, it confused people. They didn't know what they were really voting for. And then so the some people voted for it thinking that they were helping, that they were doing the right thing, and then others voted for it only because the message was fight President Trump.
I think that was a big fight. President Trump was a big part of the messaging.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And not just in general, not just Trump and everything that he has done, but there was this narrative. The only thing I can put my finger on with Prop 50 is there was this narrative of that, Trump stole Texas.
Yeah.
That Trump is being
Right.
unfair in Texas. And I think there were people which isn't true. If you really look into what
It's
happened,
completely false.
completely false. But I think there were people that even who voted for Trump were going, that's not right. And
Yeah.
I want to set things right.
Yeah, the Newsom particularly, and the Democrat Party, the legislature, in their framing of it and their pushing of it, they did a great job of really lying to the public. They framed it like exactly like you said, and then it was that anti-Trump anyway
Mhm.
that just progressed it. And it shows that there were so many things going on. Everything was just a perfect storm for it to pass. But you get the exit polls from Prop 50, and it was 90, something like 93%. 93% of the exit polling said that it was absolutely wrong to give politicians the ability to draw lines. And then 65% of them voted to give politicians the right to draw lines.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
So
crazy.
it shows you the absolute, just complete confusion. People had no idea what they were voting for. It was against Trump. They came out to vote against Trump.
So do you have a fear of, I don't want to say a fear. Is there a reluctance or is there a strategy against associating or being too close or being portrayed as too close to Trump? Or what are your feelings
No.
of running in California for governor as a Republican with the concerns that some people have in California about Trump? Like how do you handle that one on the campaign trail?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to be concerned with, but I don't honestly think overly concerned. We already know that I'm being labeled from Democrats as the Trump MAGA extremist sheriff. I mean, they're already saying that. They've been saying it for a year. So it's not anything new. It's not going to be a new hit attack. But the difference is I've been traveling this state for more than a year now, and there's a lot of people that have heard me. And it's like, okay, well, he's not Trump. I mean, he's still a sheriff. He still has spent 32 years doing everything right. And he's got a great background, and he's got a great um, evidence of him doing things right. And so when they listen to me talk, and then I think what the temperature of California is, they're dying. Californians are dying for someone to tell them the truth. They're dying for someone that with leadership ability that they can trust, that they know is being honest. They don't even care if they don't like what they're being told. They know they're being told the truth, and they're just looking for someone that cares about them. And that law enforcement sheriff role, that's where I fit in that.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't ever remember you, and it never really mattered to me. I don't ever remember you being a huge supporter or detractor of Trump. I don't remember that ever coming out, and I've followed your career from the very beginning. I do remember a conversation that there was a dust up, for lack of a better term, at a Trump event in Riverside, and you and I talked about that. Had a conversation about that on Gun Owners Radio. And the impression I got when you and I were talking about it is that it didn't matter to you who the president was, but a United States president was having an event in your backyard, and it was your responsibility, and you took it very seriously. So it wasn't like hey, wow, Trump is coming. It was, hey, wow, the president of the United States is coming. And it wouldn't matter who it was in that moment.
And for everyone out there, I mean, you have to realize our desert community, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, that entire area is frequented by world leaders, not just our former presidents, presidents. They all come here. But our current president at the time was not President Trump, it was Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would come here. His wife would come here. The first lady was here. Our former presidents would be here. So, and I'm telling you, my agency knows there is nothing going to happen to a world leader in Riverside County. We are not going to allow extremism and violence to bring us negatively into the news. So it wasn't about President Trump. It was a president, a former president in a presidential election that was here, and we had word that it could be. I mean, there was violence that came around him. He had 2 assassination attempts. It's like that wasn't going to happen here, and it was short notice. So it was we were on alert, and so it was not about politics. I did technically endorse him, but it was more my endorsement of President Trump in a video that I did of Put a Felon in the White House was more.
Oh, I do recall that. Yeah.
It was more of a parody sarcasm against the politicians in California, because they've been letting felons out of prison on purpose for a decade.
Right.
And they've been passing laws that we can never send criminals to prison anymore. They have a love affair for criminals. And then when President Trump was convicted, their narrative changes to the felon, the felon, the felon.
Right.
And that day I happened to be stuck at a train, and it was going through social media, and every single post was Democrats in California, including our governor, saying felon, 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 felon. And so it was more of like a parody toward that of, yeah, well, okay, I'll be on your side then. And let's put a felon in.
Plus the felonies that they hung on him.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculous.
Yes.
It was such a,
it was crazy.
So Riverside, you brought, I mean, I don't think people really truly realize how diverse Riverside is politically. You have, Palm Springs and the city of Riverside. I mean, it's really, you have some desert, some rural, some urban. I mean, it is really, really politically diverse.
Yeah, we are a very good microcosm of the entire state. Everything that the entire state has, we just don't have a beach. We have mountains, we have snow, we have desert, we have big city, little town, small town, mountain town, desert town. We have everything. We have prisons, we have jails, we have 12 Indian nations. I mean, we have everything. It's very, very diverse. The left side of our county is completely different than the west side of our county, and the north side is completely different than the south side, and everything in between. So it's very unique. And I have 17 contract cities. So I have 17 city council members.
17 contract cities. That means that you provide law enforcement. They don't have a police department. The sheriff's department is their police.
Is their law enforcement. So technically I'm the chief of police of 17 cities within Riverside County. So 17 city councils, I act as their chief of police. And it's just a massive organization. It's a massive area of responsibility. And each one of those different cities is completely different.
So I think what's interesting about that is you had said it's a microcosm of really the whole state. So, and it's been run so efficiently for the last 7 years. Is it 7 years?
Yeah, we're almost at 8.
Yeah. And I know, being a former member of your department, recently retired, we don't get involved in politics, but being that it's being run so well as like the microcosm, which is reflective of the entire state of California. Who better to have, to run the state than someone who's really run the same type of organization or the county?
Yeah,
that mirrors the state.
Yeah, and we are so big. We're a major, large county, and it's interesting that along those lines that you're talking about, the groups that I'm meeting, and obviously I'm meeting organizations and associations and groups of people and businesses, and they are even amazed sometimes of my working knowledge of their industry. And it's like, well, law enforcement touches everything. And it's not like we work in a bubble. And so you have those relationships in every single industry, every single part of society. And I do have a working knowledge of them, and I understand their issues and their problems. So even the farming community, when I go to the Farm Bureau, it's like, oh, a sheriff, what do you know about farming? It's like, well, I have one of the largest agriculture areas in Eastern Riverside County, right, in the state. And then I talk to the schools, and it's like, we have massive schools. We have more school resource officers than anyone. And it's like, so I'm intimately aware of that and involved in that. Our building community, everything, it works out good for us. And I will even say, because we are so large, the CCWs that we have, the program that we established, the night and day difference in CCWs from me taking over and what it was before. I am a great example for the rest of the state that CCWs are not bad. There's law-abiding people with guns are not a problem anywhere. And the narrative that the state has that, oh my gosh, if too many people have guns or if too many people are carrying guns, everybody's going to, the wild, wild west. Well, it really isn't, because I've got 65,000 of them in our county, and we don't have issues. We've never had issues.
You're up to 65,000 CCWs in Riverside.
Yeah.
And what was it when you took over?
3,200.
Holy cow. So in 7 years, you've gone from 3,200 to 65,000 CCWs.
Yeah.
And I remember you did it pretty much like week one.
I did. That was really for the majority of Riverside. Everywhere I went during that election, that's the number one question that comes up. And it was a legitimate concern for people. So I love every part of the Constitution. It's the greatest document in the history of the world for a country, and it has to be protected, every aspect of it, and including the Second Amendment. And I've always been a good or a big, whether I just like guns. I grew up with guns, so guns are okay with me. They're not something out of the norm, and it was something that I had to do. And so on day one, the directive was, we're doing something different. If they're not prevented, they're going to get one. And man, we hit the floor running. And the thing is the deputies wanted that too. It's like they were just, we didn't have the direction to make it happen. So making that happen, we just went.
Well, I'll say it. Your predecessor didn't want to issue. He could have, and he didn't want to issue.
Right. That's the state.
And well, that was the state of affairs, or that was the state of California?
That's kind of what the state is now. So, and he was no different. There's a few sheriffs that are just like me. They may not have as many, and they may not have put the resources toward it that we have, but they still issue.
Yeah, and I don't want to slam him, but I do want it to be an example. If you're in a county that doesn't have 65,000 issued, it's not California. You can get a permit here now. A lot has happened. You don't have to have good cause anymore. I mean, essentially, if you're not prohibited, you can get a CCW.
And that's how it should be.
And for you to go from 3,200 to 65,000 in 7 years, if you can do it, any county can do it.
Oh yes.
You're not even the biggest county. You're the most well funded. I mean, you can do it.
Yeah, we showed that.
Yeah, we certainly did. I think one of the things is the narrative, though, because people still don't believe that they can get it. It's actually very easy, even in Riverside County.
Yeah.
Like I meet people, I mean, he does as well, but, and we'll talk about things like that, but it is so, I don't want to say so easy. The process is easy. Like,
your process is easy. Riverside County's process is easy.
But it's really the same, should be the same process everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
One of the things I was surprised about when I became the sheriff, and I've apologized to people because I didn't care what the process was, because I have a gun, and it wasn't something I needed to go through because I'm a cop, and so I have my CCW permit, and so I really didn't understand. I thought it was hard in California to get a CCW, and then when I became the sheriff, I started looking into it and reading the law. It's actually easy. The state application is easy. It's short. It's concise. It's easy information. And it's like, wait a minute. You just have to abide by this and we're good. And I mean, we have our process that we have to go through, but that's all I did is say, just abide by that. Don't do the extras. Don't do the add-ons. And if they can get them, approve them. Everyone in the state could be doing that. So
what's an example of the add-on? Like how did you clear?
They just example of that.
Yeah. What's a specific example of like clearing that path?
Well, so some agencies, smaller agencies, they have additional restrictions. Part of the process, and I'll just throw it out there, like Long Beach PD, they have to answer a questionnaire like you were a sworn officer. So it's like a 16-page questionnaire that they ask all the ridiculous questions. Like, do you have tattoos? Do you have piercings? Like, where are your piercings? What does that have anything to do with the concealed carry? So
Yeah.
those, all these additional, yeah, all
We had
these,
that.
yeah, all of these additional levels that they have to go through, delays. And I'll just give you another example. And I'm just going to throw them under the bus because they're not doing anything about it. LAPD. So LAPD, they have a wait list. You have to call and say, can I be added to the wait list to apply for a CCW? So it was 2 years to get on to the, yes, go ahead and apply in LAPD. LA Sheriff, we all know, has been sued recently. They're the reason we have the non-resident. They're the reason that we have all these additional restrictions now, or I guess a lack of restrictions, I would say, because LAPD or LASO didn't want to issue CCWs. So they had all these additional things that weren't required by the law. So really what the law is doing now is they're whittling down all these things. And God bless CRPA and, Chuck Michelle.
CRPA,
So,
sure.
yeah, with the CCW Reckoning Project, he's going after these agencies because they're doing things that are literally against the law. So and they're not allowing people to apply.
Yeah, what I saw in the application, in the state application, and in the law that allows us to even apply for a CCW here. I mean, I don't want to get into that whole argument, but it spells it out, and it says in the law that you shall fill out the state application. It gives the form number and everything else, and it said, and there is no reason for any other information other than that. But then in the law, it gives each individual sheriff or police chief the discretion to add more or to request more information. And that's where it's like, okay, well, why? That's was my position. It's like, let's abide by the state law. If you're not prevented, then you'll get it. So that's that. And that was before you went in. We had that. You have the 3-page state application, and then we had a 20-page questionnaire that you had to fill out that truly was, it was very it's like not important. It's like I don't care what the neighbors you've had for the last 30 years are, and what your tattoos are. What does that have to do with anything? They were bizarre questions that just didn't mean anything, and I just went to the bare minimum of what the state said. That's the process.
And I think the message was important too. It was a priority for you.
Yeah, it's definitely a priority. I mean, it's a constitutional right.
Well, so what you're describing, going from 3,000 to 65,000, going through and saying, hey, this is the law, and here's how to make it better, and here's how to make it work. What you're describing is being an executive, having executive experience. And when you get into the command staff, correct me if I'm wrong, and especially when you get into sheriff, that's an executive job.
Right.
And I think that you're the only person I can think of on the list that has executive experience. Yes, and is successful. Steve Hilton doesn't have any executive experience. Eric Swalwell doesn't have any executive experience. Katie Porter doesn't have any executive experience. I can't think of any of them that have any executive experience, which gives you a distinct advantage. But I also think that there's a difficulty there in that some of the problems you have to solve are legislative problems. Mm-hmm. How do you solve legislative problems from the executive branch?
Yeah. So you set the agenda. So the governor has a lot of power. There is a lot of power, even over other elected officials. I can tell them what to do. So the attorney general, even though he's an elected official, I can direct the attorney general on what to do, and he has to do it. So there's a lot of that power within those elected, those 9, I believe, constitutionally elected positions in the state. So you have the agenda, you're wielding the executive power over those people. And then the legislative branch, you still set the agenda. So I'm controlling the budget. I'm setting the budget. I'm setting our priorities. I'm setting the agenda. And in the end, this is in a simple terms, very, very simple terms. What is every politician there? Not every. What is the majority of the politicians there? What are they afraid of? not getting elected again.
Mhm.
That's it. They're the majority of them, I do not believe, are there for the right reasons. They're not there for us. They are there for them, and they're there for their agenda, not to make somebody to sacrifice for California to make California better. And so they're afraid of exposure. They're afraid of not getting elected again by bad exposure of what they're doing while they're there. And that's how I'm going to get it done. I'm not afraid of camera. I've already promised the media, all the media in the Sacramento Valley, I will do daily updates on the steps of the Capitol of what happened the day before. And I will tell them name by name of who's doing some good work for their benefit, for their community, for the state as a whole, and who's the obstructionist, and who's introducing ridiculous legislation that's going to harm whatever it is, or it's going to have an unintended consequence for half of the state. It's beneficial for half, but not the other half. Well, you can't have a law that does that. And that's really the dilemma that we're in and the problem that we're in, because one party rule, they just get everything that they want and they high five each other and say, what a great idea. But there's never a thought of how it is going to negatively impact someone else. So when that exposure happens, they're going to be forced to do what government was supposed to do in the first place, and that's negotiate to get the best deal. If you and I shouldn't agree, if somebody else wants something, and you and I, if we just agree and say, yeah, let's do this, then we're not thinking of consequences around the perimeter. But if you and I disagree, you're going to give me the reasons why it can't happen. I'm going to tell you why it should. And then we're going to sit here and argue until we figure out, hey, that works now. So I addressed your concerns, you addressed my concerns, and now it's best for him. That's how government's supposed to work, but that's not how it works now. So I'm not afraid of the legislature, a supermajority or even a majority or even a supermajority at all, because I'm going to force them to do their job. And their job is not to push an agenda. Their job is to do what's best for Californians. And in order to do what's best for Californians, you have to know what Californians think. And that means you have to talk to everybody.
I think it's important. They do a lot of talking points up there, and that's it, rather than really communicate with the Californians. How is this going to impact you? So I know one of the things we're going to talk about later is how do we really effectively communicate with our Californians and to let them know really what's happening in our state. So I think that's important that you're taking that approach to
I
it.
will say that, I've had a very successful career here as sheriff. I don't like talking about myself, and I don't want anybody thinking that, bragging or anything else, but I'm extremely popular, and I'm popular because I'm approachable and I will dialogue with anyone. And people know that if you can convince me to change my mind, that's okay. Yes, I have my opinion. I think that I want to be advised on every decision that I make, and I think I'm making the right decision. But if you're going to tell me I'm not, then tell me I'm not, and then we'll fix it. And that's the reputation I have here. So, I've gotten good at it. And the diversity of Riverside County, we're a blue county, and I have a 4-1 Democrat board. So my ability to communicate and get things done for the betterment of Riverside County we're just taking it to Sacramento, and we're going to do the same thing.
So one question I ask a lot of candidates and elected officials, and there's not an answer. It's a very subjective question. If you know for a fact that there's a bill, okay, being proposed that you're going to have to vote on, let's say, okay, and you know for a fact that this bill is supported by 80% of the people in whatever your district is, and you hate this bill, you think this bill is horrible and wrong and bad. It's not just let's rename a bridge. It's a real meaty issue that you really are principally completely opposed to. But 80% of the people in your district want this thing passed. How do you vote? Do you vote reflecting the 80%, or do you vote reflecting what your opinion is?
So I am not a politician, but I'm going to give you a politician answer. It has to depend on what it is. That's one of those things that their life is not about a blanket statement. Life is not about a one size fits all. And you can't say that I'm going for the 80%, because that might be the wrong answer.
Mhm.
Because The idea of a constitutional republic is 99% of the people can't rule over one. I mean, 1% cannot be abused by 99% of the people. So you would have to go with the one, even though 99 said do it. We don't have mob rule. And so just because mob rule wants to take over, you can't say that, well, it's the majority, because that's not a leader. A leader is the person that says 80% want it, but that's the wrong answer. And so we're not doing it.
Well, I think
And
that
it's
continue.
individual case. I mean, everything has to be.
Well, yeah, and the citizens elect you to make those decisions.
Right.
Not like you said, the majority rule. If I've got 5 kids and 4 of them want this, but the one is probably a bad analogy. But anyway, let's get back to your job is to make decisions on behalf of the best interest of our citizens.
Yeah.
I'll
give you I'll give you a perfect example.
There you go.
We'll talk about the wolves in Northern California. The majority of the legislature said, let's do this. We want wolves back in California. It was an absolutely horrible decision, because the people that made that decision were the people that live in Los Angeles and San Diego and in downtown Sacramento and downtown San Francisco, Oakland, and all of those places that, oh, look how pretty the wolf is. And then the entire rural area of the state said absolutely not. And they did it anyway. And now we have a disaster of wolves just destroying livelihoods, stock, cattle, dogs, horses. God forbid we have a person that's attacked by a wolf. But those wolves that started in this nice little tiny little community in Northern California, I'm sorry to inform everybody, but there's now one in Los Angeles.
I saw that. An actual wolf in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I saw that.
And it's all fun and games until one of these Hollywood people lose their dog or lose their horse or, something.
Or wears a Red Riding Hood outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a leader should have said, no, we can't do that. Or if they're going to do it, then the leader has to come against the environmentalists, the activists, and say, but we are going to manage that wolf herd. We're not, or that wolf, we're not going to let them come in and then just completely take over California again.
So ruled by your principles and using the budget and your megaphone as governor, what does CCW reform on a state level look like?
That's going to be a tough one. We're going to make it easy as possible. I think and I'm a forward thinker, so it would be very easy for me to, put it all under DOJ, put it all under the governor's office or something like that, and have the state manage everything so everybody's abiding by the same thing. But then the problem with that is you make that happen, and then in 8 years when I'm no longer the governor, then you have somebody that is like, oh, nobody's getting them anymore because it's my discretion. So there's always that move, the legislative move, to go to a shall and change our constitution to a shall issue, and which it probably should be. That's not an end all, but when you have individual persons, individual chiefs of police and sheriffs that may have differing opinions, the Los Angeles sheriff in particular, I mean, that you can, and it's like my former sheriff, he can say he wanted to all he wanted to, but he didn't. And then the LA sheriff, you blame it on budgets or whatever, but it's a constitutional right, it's a responsibility, and that's a lot of people put you in there and voted for it. So it's going to have to be a whole bunch of people from both sides in a room with a conversation with me so I can decide. But I think there has to be a major revamping of the CCW process, because you living in Los Angeles shouldn't punish you from the issuance just because you live 30 miles away from I do. Different. It's a big question, and I don't want to act like I'm shirking the question or not answering.
Well,
It's a big question.
Well, just like a minor, pretty easy win would just to, the background system that people have to go through. They could use about 50 more people working there so that it doesn't take so long.
Well,
I think that's
I
a
talked
funding.
about
That's a
this.
funding issue, though, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It's it may be a funding issue, but it's also, we have to also be realistic about when was that written and what are the policies that are in place up until then. Because technology now, I can tell you that within probably 700 milliseconds, I can tell you whether or not you're going to qualify for that CCW, whether or not you're prevented.
Right.
So why does it take 6 weeks? Why does it take?
When you guys pull somebody over, but by the time you walk back to your cruiser, you know whether or not the guy's a felon. But
Right.
it takes,
but it takes
Sacramento 6 weeks to figure out.
What's interesting about the background process, because I've worked in it, but there are certain things that they have as law enforcement officers when they pull you over that we can't use in the licensing portion of making a decision. So there's more information that the CCW coordinators and the sheriffs can use, but they're prohibited by law from using those same databases that they can readily or easily identify someone as, a wanted person or a criminal or has a TRO. We're not able to use those systems to streamline the process even quicker.
And we should be.
Absolutely.
We should be changing the old policy to update it to modern technology. I can tell you instantly. So why are we not using that technology to the point of where DOJ could be eliminated? We could eliminate DOJ. Why is DOJ involved? You could come into my CCW unit. They could do the entire process right there. Technically, you could come in and walk out with your CCW. Why can other states do it? Walk in, walk out. Because they're utilizing those databases and saying, yep, you're okay, and you're off on your way. But we're prevented from doing it.
I'm just thinking maybe one thing that you could think about when you do become governor is have it be, instead of a separate CCW license, like, hey, I'm a donor. It's right on my driver's license. Have it attached to your current California ID.
Yeah. See, as long as we came together and everybody was talking about it and you come up with good things and even like if for us, we're going to come up with a policy that we want, but there might be something that we're not thinking of because we're all in the same mindset. And we should have somebody that doesn't want CCWs just so we can hear them because they might say something. They might say, well, that's a bad idea because of this. It's like, I didn't think of that. So, okay, we won't do that. That's why you have people with differing opinions.
Sure, of course.
When you're coming up with a sound policy that's good for everybody. But it's broken. I think it's broken. I think ours is working great, or we're doing the best we can with the system we have, but it's certainly not a perfect system. So for me, why are we not trying to make it perfect?
Well, it's still the fastest and number one in the state. I can just tell you that.
Yeah, I tell people, I more often than I should probably admit, I point out, well, Chad's doing it. How come you can't do it? When I run into
for my other fellow sheriffs that are listening, there's a bunch of sheriffs in the state that issue. We meet regularly, and I know there's some good ones out there. Orange County does a good job. Kern County.
Yes, San Diego does a good job too.
Yeah.
I just want them I want all these counties to do a larger volume of a good job.
One of the
more often.
One of the things that I found that I just couldn't believe when I took over as sheriff, and we're catching up. We're going to get up there. But you think about 2.5 million people. I mean, we're not even what is 60,000? That's like
it's a half a 1%.
Yeah,
maybe even less than that.
5%. Yeah,
I'm not good at math.
10% would be 200,000. 240,000 would be 10%. So even if it was 10%, I mean, I'm 180,000 away from just 10% of the population. So that's not that many. We're even those 65,000, and we're by far more than anybody in the state. I believe it should be a lot more.
So you talked about the media. How did the media react when you made the changes to the CCW system? Did you get pushback or?
No, none. I mean, in the very beginning, it was the whole same silly comments of it's going to be the wild wild west, or you're going to be responsible for the death, and it just these crazy things, the propaganda that is forced upon us, that is just completely untrue. That's what the media said, and I ignored it, and I knew it wasn't true. I knew the truth of CCW, that there will be less problems, not more.
Mhm.
And so we just went with it. And then because there is nothing, and then you never hear anything about it. I think out of 65,000, I think we've had 5 actual uses where someone actually had to protect themselves or someone else with a CCW, and they're all legitimate. We haven't had anybody that abused their CCW permit. The attorney general likes to say that they're someone had it suspended. Well, we suspend them all the time. And for example, if you have a CCW permit and you get arrested for a DUI, we're going to take your CCW permit until until your case is adjudicated. That doesn't mean you did something wrong with your CCW permit. We're just, it's just that's what has to happen. But he uses that as saying, well, how many crimes were committed? Well, that's a false stat.
Right.
And so,
another one is like a DUI.
yeah,
Because DUI generally you get probation. You can't be on
you can't be on probation and
Probation.
have a CCW.
correct.
Yeah,
So that's interesting. So they use those stats,
yeah.
but it's
So
just trying.
we're gonna fix the process. I think we did a great job in Riverside County. I think I mean, even for you, this is your business. This is this is just, you're in this. You're considered an expert in the state, and so to hear you say that we're doing a good job and we're an example, well, I can do that for the whole state too. But I just don't know what that's going to look like, because the current law gives the discretion to each individual sheriff or chief. So that law would have to be changed. We would have to
Yeah.
amend that.
SB2 took away a lot of that autonomy,
Yeah.
which was good and bad, because like you said, if there's somebody at the top who you agree with, it's good. But if there's someone at the top you disagree with, not so good.
Yeah.
SB2 was kind of this, it certainly, there was nothing good came out of SB2, but it did start to centralize the process.
Yeah. Nothing good came out of SB2. SB2 was another perfect example of the embarrassment of an attorney general that we have in California, because the person that's supposed to be responsible for law enforcement is just an absolute liar. He's just a dishonest activist that got put in a position of power that has to do with law. And he spent the entire night, who knows what he was bribing people with, what he was promising people with, what the negotiations that he was going through, trying to make sure that thing passed. And it's horrific. It is. I mean, it is absolutely anti-constitutional, or anti-constitution, unconstitutional. And the only reason they did it is because of the ruling. And so you get a Supreme Court ruling, and so they immediately
Right.
go to somehow get a workaround, not caring about the Constitution. They even said it. They said they don't care. They're going to do it anyway. And then they just hope that they somehow prevail in court. And so now somebody's got to be a victim. And now you go through a years-long process, but they win because they're defending it with your taxpayer money. They don't care. They don't care how long they defend a frivolous lawsuit or an unconstitutional law, because it's not their money. They're not ever responsible.
I know it is our money.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's not their money. Yeah, it's our money that they're using against us. So about 10 years ago, they started talking about red flag laws, and I think everybody thought this is good. We do need some kind of stopgap or whatever, and the way it was sold to voters was, this is a last line of defense. When there's absolutely no other way to stop a mass shooter, this is a last line of defense that we may be able to prevent, something horrific from happening. And it passed, but now it's being used. I don't think it's hyperbole to say it's being overused. It is being used as standard operating procedure.
For bad reasons.
For bad reasons. So where do you stand on gun violence restraining orders?
There has this is another one of those, you can't have a blanket statement. You have to have every individual case has to be treated unique, because it's different people involved. There's different circumstances involved. And the way they have it now is it doesn't even have to be true. I mean, and now this is our work. I mean, there's nothing worse than domestic violence. There is nothing worse than divorce for a law enforcement officer, because when we go to those types of things, it's like my husband or my wife did this to me. It's like, holy moly. It's like, oh yeah, we're going through a divorce. It's like, okay, so now we have the motive to not be telling the truth.
Right.
And we know that that's a question we ask. Are you married? Are you separated? Are there problems? And then we want to know what the issues are. Because if we know that there's a divorce pending, chances are somebody's lying. Somebody's not going to be telling the truth. It happens in kid issues with just treating kids horribly, and the whole battle with things like that. And it's because of divorce. So in a divorce situation, you have a husband or a wife saying, they threatened to kill me. And it's okay, well, here's my domestic violence restraining order then. And now we take away all your guns and good luck getting them back. It's a broken system.
So what protections can, right now, especially we were just talking about SB2. SB2 has made it so that if you can easily accuse somebody of something, they will get a temporary protective order against them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to court and the judge says, this is ridiculous. This never should have been issued. But you now lose your CCW for 5 years because you had that temporary protective order for 5 minutes or whatever. And so that's just an example, a real world example that I've personally seen not just once. So what kind of protections can be put in place? And they're kind of lumping everything together as protective orders, but I'm really specifically talking about the way gun violence restraining orders have been implemented. What can we do to protect gun owners?
So real quick before you answer that, I know that the temporary restraining order, they've already went to court on that. So the temporary thing has been taken out.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen anymore. So I know that was as of January 1st. It has to be signed by a judge and like a temporary 3-year, not a temporary 10-day. So moving forward. So that was one of the things that
those are unintended consequences that bad laws cause. And you don't know until you get there, but when you get there, you have to address them. You have to fix them. So like the DVTROs, I can understand why the judges feel like they're in a predicament, but at the same time, we know that all judges don't make the right decisions anyway. They put their own emotions in rather than law. Those domestic violence for us is tough because that's the number one cause of injury or death with cops is domestic violence calls. So we know that they're bad. Taking guns away. This is, I mean,
I want to separate domestic violence from gun violence restraining orders. I don't know a single gun owner out there that thinks that someone who's committing domestic violence should have a gun. Nobody's defending that at all. But I'm talking about the implementation of the gun violence restraining orders where, I've seen a roommate who, his roommate was, wasn't paying rent and stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm talking more of the far more subjective scenarios. I'm not talking
about, cannot have a neighbor. That has to be completely done away with, because you cannot have a neighbor dispute where the neighbor says he threatened to kill me and I want a gun violence restraining order. You can't have that. That can't happen. That is a law that was put into place that is just another tool to make sure that people can't have guns.
Right.
Because when it is that subjective and no proof, there doesn't have to be proof. It could just be, I think he's crazy. He's crazy and he's going to kill me. and now you lose your guns because I just said that because I don't like you. When you have a situation set up where your constitutional rights could technically be infringed upon because I'm going to take away your guns because I'm lying and just said that you're going to hurt me or you threatened to hurt me or I'm afraid of you. I mean, there is no one that can make sense of that. That doesn't make any sense. It's a way for the state to make sure that somebody's going to lose their guns and they're not going to get them back.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So, California has over 8 million gun owners. What does that say about like Californians and, their view on the Second Amendment or what does that say to you about Californians and their need or want to have more guns?
It's a lot of guns. I mean, that's a lot of people in the state. What is it, a quarter? I mean, it's almost a quarter of the state has guns. I was surprised when I came to California. I was afraid coming from a state that everyone has guns. I was thinking that, oh my gosh, guns aren't allowed in California. And I was surprised that there's a ton of people that hunt here. The shooting sports are huge here.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that are not afraid of guns, that understand that that's your right to have one.
You came from Utah.
I did. Yeah.
So I saw a previous podcast that you were on, and you were actually talking about, the gun owners, the bow hunters, the fishermen, all these different people, and how they need to really support each other because they all have a common goal, right?
Yeah. When you're talking about the hunting community, the fishermen the context of that was, we're talking about the hunting community and the rifle hunting community and the fishing community and the bow hunting community are not all on the same page. And the laws that are going against the rifle hunting community, the bow hunting community and the fishing community are like, doesn't affect us. But it really does, because that's just one more way that they're coming at. And if they would, the outdoor community in California is absolutely huge. And if we would all band together and if we would all come together and say, well, yeah, I don't hunt with a bow or I don't hunt with a gun, but that's still my lifestyle, so I'm going to support that. I think we would be good.
Yeah, and I don't know that not even the hunters and stuff, like the outdoors with the people down at Glamis, there's so many people that are outdoors. If they all support each other, but for me, it kind of goes into, and I want to transition into like the amendments here. So the Second Amendment, we had talked earlier. A lot of people view the Second Amendment as like a second class amendment, or it's not that important. But, one of the things Michael and I had talked about earlier is if you abolish the Second Amendment, like what do we as citizens have to be able to stop the government from taking our First Amendment? Right. Yeah. So,
that's the statement.
Each and every amendment has equal value, right? And same with the outdoor community. So if we support each and every one of those, similar to the Constitution, everything will be fine. If we support each and every Constitution, if we take away the Second Amendment, what's next? Your freedom of speech, your due process, search and seizure, like one falls and they all fall. So that's why the Second Amendment is actually so important, because it gives us an opportunity to enforce all the other amendments, right?
Yeah. So, you go back to the founding of the Constitution, when our country was founded and the writing of the Constitution, the government, the English government would restrict guns. And so for here, they were like, well, wait a minute. If our government's going to come after us, we have to be able to defend ourselves. And so that's why they put that in there. It wasn't to hunt. It wasn't to target shoot or anything like that. It was
tyranny.
It was tyranny. It was being overtaken by a government, which we see China. There's no guns allowed in China. I wonder why. Because the government doesn't want that many people having guns to protect themselves from government.
Absolutely. And, as we continue to elect, not we, but these socialist politicians, there's a new, and I don't know if you saw this, a Democratic socialist is running for mayor in LA now. So I'm certain they might get elected because that's how far left LA is. But as we continue to get these major cities pulling so far away from our like foundation, the demise of America,
Yeah,
something needs to happen.
there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people in Los Angeles that want CCW permits, whether it's Los Angeles proper or the cities around it. Can you imagine what that's going to be with a socialist in there that doesn't want our Constitution and doesn't care about our constitutional rights and our Second Amendment? It's going to be interesting.
LA should be, and I'll get to you, I'll let you go in a second, but Riverside County has 65,000 CCWs. LA should easily be 2 or 3 times that number.
Yeah.
Just because of this. The LA
4
city
times.
has 10 million people, 9.6 million people in the city of LA alone. That's 4 times the size of Riverside County. They should easily have 200,000 CCWs, in my opinion.
And an armed society is a polite society.
I'll tell you this, that's true.
Really, truly. I mean, really, truly. And the numbers, it's more than just a saying. I mean, really, surveys, numbers have proven it. After you started issuing, were there some noticeable stats that you saw? Or I know there certainly weren't any negative stats, but was there anything that stuck out?
So the thing about stats is there's really no way to say what caused it. I will say that when I came in and we really started pushing CCWs, there was a couple other sheriffs in the state that started doing the same, and other ones that were doing it didn't want to be overtaken, and so they ramped it up a little bit more. So there are a lot of big counties that are issuing CCWs, including San Diego. San Diego's gone way up in what they had. And we do know that some violent crime is going down. And it's like, we can't relate it right to that, but it has to have something. It's one of those things that you can't prove a negative. You can't, I don't know if it did, but because we gave them, we can't take it back, and we'll never know if it would have been higher without those CCWs, but at least there's a correlation. There has to be, we don't know if it's the cause, but there's a correlation. So it's, we can look at other states. We can look at other states that have it, and we know that their crime rates are lower than ours. And so now that we see our crime rates going down, well, it could be because of that. We know that it's not because we're tough on crime. We know that it's not because, things like that. So it could be because criminals are worried, especially in Riverside County. It's not a secret. They all know that I issue them, and it's in the media. We tout it on social media. So the criminals here know that a lot of people are carrying guns.
One thing that really, you guys as law enforcement professionals, one story that really stuck with me when I started getting really into Second Amendment activism, there was a study done in Florida where they interviewed a bunch of prisoners. And one of the questions was, and I'm paraphrasing, was, what's your biggest fear? As far as when you're picking a victim, what's your biggest fear? And it was overwhelmingly that their potential victim is armed. Mm-hmm. They did not want an armed victim. And they were talking about break-ins and muggings and, all kinds of horrible people. And that was their number one fear. And I just, whatever political rhetoric or bumper sticker sayings or whatever that anti-gun folks come up with, you cannot get rid of how much sense it makes that, hey, if you're being attacked, you want to be able to have a self-defense tool on you. And the most effective self-defense tool ever invented is a firearm. It just makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, it does. And with me as the governor, I'm going to be honest with people. I'm not going to allow this false narrative that people having guns is bad. I have been in some heated arguments with our attorney general and about CCWs and about his lies about the dangers of CCWs and people with guns and everything else. And I have repeatedly demanded to know where he's getting his statistics, because I don't believe those statistics exist. We know they don't exist because we're a perfect example that they don't exist. 58 sheriffs in the state, we know that doesn't exist. The CCW holders aren't running around committing crimes. We would know that. And he repeatedly touts it. And I'm demanding, show me, you're lying. Prove to me you're lying. And so one time he sent me the study, supposedly. And I don't know if he just figured I wasn't going to read it, but it had nothing to do with what I wanted. It had nothing to do. Yeah, it was about CCWs, but nothing about stats or crimes or anything. It's like it's just dishonest. So me as the governor, I'm not going to allow that anymore. I'm going to be honest with people and say, look, the statistics that you've been told about, they're not true. Here's the reality and here's the truth. People want the truth. And when you tell them the truth and give them the truth, sometimes they're okay with it.
Now you're pro Second Amendment, but I've heard a rumor that you're anti Third Amendment, and you do think we should quarter troops. Could you address that, please? I'm just kidding. You know, that's the only amendment that everyone agrees on is that third. There's no controversy there. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am and always will be always a defender of our Constitution. And you know, cops. I don't know of any cops that aren't for the Second Amendment.
I don't know any.
Well,
maybe in LA.
I could do a whole hour podcast on that alone. There are some. I mean, you know, law enforcement. You guys are just like anybody else. You got some. There's a diversity in thought.
Yeah,
I've definitely run into some antis that have a badge.
But so my point is, I am 100% for the Second Amendment. I'm for every amendment. And you're going to get some of my detractors that are going to say that I'm anti-Fourth Amendment. Absolutely not. I am a staunch defender of the Fourth Amendment. I never, ever, ever want to violate your Fourth Amendment rights.
Talk about why is that important to you?
It's in our Constitution. You absolutely have a right to not have your stuff taken from you by the government, or searched or anything else, searched or taken from you by the government. And as cops, we have to walk that line of we can't violate your rights. We have to protect the public, but not at the expense of your constitutional rights.
How do you fight, though? I would imagine that, you know, we all think we're good people. You know, we all deep down think we're good people. We don't want to hurt people. We want to help people. But I would imagine as a police officer that there's probably a piece of you that thinks, gosh, if I could just do this, and it's a violation of their Fourth Amendment. If I could just get into the house and find the bad thing or whatever, you know what I mean? There has to be some kind of internal fight where you're just like, look, I'm a good person trying to do good things, but these laws are in my way. How do you deal with that?
I'll tell you how I deal with it, how I have a perfect example of how I dealt with it, and how I hope many, many, many more cops, if not all, I wish all did, just like this. So I was a deputy. I was a dope cop. And I got an informant that I knew was telling me the truth. I knew it was good information, that this person was delivering drugs at a time from point A to point B. And we had already been trying to find this person. We suspected he had a drug lab, and we knew that he was selling meth. And so now I get this information that somebody ordered up some meth and it's being delivered at this time in this vehicle. It's the suspect doing it. And so we went and I waited. I saw him drive by. I got behind him. Eventually, everyone does something wrong. There's always a reason to pull something over. You don't stop. You don't signal. You something. So I pull him over, and I knew there were drugs in the car. So I contact him. Driver's license was good. No probation, no warrants, no nothing. I asked him if he anything illegal in the car. He said no. I asked him, oh, well, you don't mind if I search then, right? And he said, no. I know you can't. Yes, I do mind. You can. And so I tried to talk him into me letting me search his car and everything else. And he said no. And I had to let him drive away. And in my head, it was, I know there's a massive amount of drugs in that car, and I can't get them.
And if you could just violate his Fourth Amendment rights, you know, and I would imagine that's a struggle.
It was a struggle, but the way you reconcile it is I'm eventually going to catch him. This time he got away. I cannot violate his rights.
So
and it just as a good happy ending to the story, I arrested him for drugs and a meth lab.
You got him eventually.
I know in my career that if you just live within the law, like oh, we'll get him another day, right? That's just
That's it.
exactly how it is. Like, you got away today, I'll get you another. It's a cat and mouse game. It's really what it really is. There's really no hard feelings. It's just, this is my job. Your job is to get away. You got away today. I'll get you tomorrow.
Interesting. Side note, The Dope Cop is a really great title for your rap album when you finally release it.
He is a dope cop. He's the dopest in California.
Just throwing that out there.
Very good.
Yeah, that's funny. So how do we get the message out, or what's your message to people that are actually disenfranchised by the concealed carry process? Like, is there help is coming? We're going to, do things
I'm going to hijack that question and I'm going to answer it. And I hope everybody answers this. And we haven't talked about this. And I've heard you mention it briefly, but not pointedly. You mentioned it earlier, just about the number of gun owners in California. If gun owners would vote, we would win this election hands down.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, there is, and it wouldn't even be close. And I've heard the excuses. I've heard the excuses that, and they're so silly. It's if I register to vote and I vote, then I'm going to get called for jury duty. It's like, well, you know what? That's your civic responsibility anyway. You should do that. You should be willingly wanting to serve on a jury so criminals don't get away with it. Things like that. But then it's like, I don't want the government to know where I live, or I don't want the government to know I have a gun. It's like, we know all that anyway. We know you have a gun. We know where you live. No one's coming to get you. It's all of these excuses of why they're not voting. But the reality is California government is looking to take their guns away from them. And you have the opportunity to put a governor in that position that wants you to be able to have guns and wants you to be able to have CCWs. We have to vote. I wish I could reach every single gun owner and just convince them of the importance of voting, and we would walk away with this.
And stop moving to Tennessee and Arizona. Stay here and fight.
Yeah.
This is where the good fight is.
Yeah.
I've got a house in Tennessee, so.
Eventually. You can go there eventually, but for now,
go on vacation.
There, I live here.
Yeah.
I live here.
We could do this. It's way past time. Everything is being affected inevitably. Everybody's affected, and you have a gun, and your principles and your values align with me, and I'm going to help you in that process. It should be a no-brainer.
Yeah. Hey, I got actually kind of on a similar, but along the same line or question regarding the Second Amendment and concealed carry. Is there a difference between the two? A lot of people say my Second Amendment right shall not be infringed. But what does that mean? What does that mean? Second Amendment and concealed carry, the two difference between the two.
I think there's a fine line, and I get this asked a lot. So the Second Amendment is your right to keep and bear arms. And we don't have to go over that, but I go back and I love history. So I go back to the forming of the country. The country was formed. The Constitution was written. California, the West, didn't exist yet. So the West, it moved west. We were building into it, everything else. But in the Old West, even after the Constitution, when you went into some towns, you left your guns at the sheriff's office. And when you left town, you'd pick up your guns and you could leave. So there was always a form of some type of gun control for safety. So you can't say that my right to keep and bear arms can't be infringed, because there's always been certain circumstances. So the carry thing is, it's a good question. It's a constitutional argument. It's been decided. I think they've said that it's not the same, and which is why we have a concealed weapons permit. And then you get into the argument where people argue with, well, it should be open carry, and I want to open carry it, and that's different. Depending on who's sitting here, we can go on forever.
I'm actually against open carry in California, and the reason is I would rather someone not know that I have a firearm, because that's the equalizer. For me,
if you think like a criminal, if I'm going to rob a gas station and I walk in to rob the gas station and I see the person that's paying for their gas and he has a gun on his hip, that's the first person that I'm going to shoot.
Right.
If I don't know he has a gun, I'm going to point my gun at the clerk, and that person can back up, and now he can protect the clerk and everybody else, and he can end that situation because it's concealed.
Right. Really, I think it. Did you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, as a tactically, I don't think I would ever open carry. I've open carried in like when I'm hiking, that sort of thing. But tactically, what you guys are describing, I agree with. I don't think I would open carry, but legally, half the states out there now have constitutional carry. Most of them, if not all of them, you can open carry or concealed carry as long as you can legally own the gun and that sort of thing. So tactically, it sounds like, open carry, not a good idea in your opinion. But legally, how do you feel about the changes when in some of these other states where they're able to legally open carry?
Well, the Ninth Circuit just was talking about open carry.
Arizona can open carry.
Yeah, but even here in California, the Ninth Circuit said open carry is legal in California, which is going to be challenged, and it's not technically open carry yet.
An interesting part of that is really what they said was you have to issue open carry permits,
right?
Which kind of, there's kind of this weird tension between CCW people and open carry people, when it has to do with the permit. And really what Van Dyke, the judge, said was you have to issue open carry permits, which was kind of this weird, everybody kind of short circuited on that. But legally, how do you feel about these states that have allowed open carry as an option?
I don't think there's anything wrong with Arizona. It's, and I know there's other states. I mean, it looks awkward. Even, as a cop, you go on vacation somewhere and you walk in someplace and you see somebody walking out of a restaurant with a gun on their hip. They're not a cop. Here, they would have to be a cop. But I wouldn't be against anything like that.
I think one of the problems, even in the concealed carry community, is training. Just because you can own a gun doesn't mean you necessarily need to carry it. In these other states, I've gone some states that are open carry, and someone's carrying a gun in their back pocket. Like, you can't even get to it before I can. So
that's more of a tactical thing.
It is a tactical thing, but we don't teach.
I don't think
training.
I don't think like that though. I don't think like that. Somebody that's not trained on a gun isn't going to put a gun on their hip and just walk around.
Well, if that's true, then we wouldn't have all these gang members with all these guns. That
the cop part of me, that's where that comes into play, because I know there are certain people that shouldn't have guns.
Absolutely.
And I don't want the little gangsters that we know are gangsters running around, and just because they haven't committed a felony yet or convicted of a felony yet, I don't think that they should be able to be running around with guns on their hip or concealed.
Right.
If they've proven that they're criminals, they have professional criminals.
Yeah, and yeah, and
their intention is to hurt people, not protect themselves. Or their intention is to commit crime, not defend their family.
And I don't want to profile anyone, criminally profile or anything like that, but we know the kids that are not. Just because you haven't been arrested for it, all of your buddies have, and you've been with them. You just weren't party to it. But you don't get to carry a gun just because you haven't been convicted yet. You're hanging around with all of your friends that are involved in that gang. That's why they're happy.
You're saying if somebody is a gang member, they just haven't been.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. We know right now that juveniles don't get. We can't talk to juveniles. We can't interview juveniles. We can't do anything if someone is a juvenile without their parents or an attorney. So you can't even talk to them. So what we're finding is the older gang members find the juvenile, and that juvenile carries the guns and the drugs.
Oh, I see. That's wow. How interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's these laws that are being passed where we try and fight them with the legislature and tell them of the unintended consequences. They don't care. Then they pass these laws, and then now this is what we get. They even wanted that under 26 years old. 26. And it's just so.
Wait. You couldn't talk to somebody who was under 26?
Yeah.
Unless they were with a parent.
It's so bizarre, the arguments they use, because they say your mind's not fully developed yet. And so you can't make a rational decision.
But we
Okay.
want your vote.
Yeah, they want your vote, and we want to. Okay, then don't draft them. Don't give them a driver's
Yeah,
license. Don't.
it's completely irrational. I mean, I'm not saying it is. It is just bizarre, but that's the mentality of the lawmakers that we have in California and the bills that are passed that I, as a governor, would never ever even consider signing, and that if they even attempted a veto, I would be just constant press conference until all of you were calling your legislators saying you better not veto that because that's a ridiculous law. That's what we need in the governor's mansion is stupid things like that being prevented from happening, and in every industry, not just law enforcement, but there's other things too.
So, hey, one of the questions, did you want to ask a question about the top tier? So California's top 2-tier primary leads, the Republican versus the only way for a viable way forward is to have a Republican runoff, essentially, for this next election in November. Did you want to?
I think I want to. How is as a Republican, it doesn't give you a huge advantage being a Republican in the state of California.
Right.
There are far more registered Democrats, and I think at this point there are even more undeclared than there are registered Republicans. If they don't outnumber them, it's super close. So it seems impossible. And I last week had an argument with one of your opponents about this, and in some ways he kind of changed my mind, and maybe not in the way he hoped, but how do you win? Like how can you convince somebody who's as skeptical as I am that a Republican can win for governor against a Democrat? Now, obviously, if 2 Republicans make it to the runoff, a Republican's going to win. But short of that, if you're running against a Democrat in the state of California, how are you going to pull this off? It seems like such a steep hill to climb.
And it's not. We're not even worried about it. We're more concentrating on the June election now, just to make sure that I'm going to the November election against a Democrat.
You'd rather go against the Democrat.
Absolutely. So let me tell you what's going to happen. If it's 2 Republicans, if 2 Republicans win the primary and go to November, that's truly numbers wise, we're below 50%. Those 2 percentages of the Republicans are going to be probably 20, 18, somewhere around there. So about 38%, maybe 40%, and then everybody else splits all the rest of them. So then in November, I get elected governor, sworn in January. The following day, there will be a recall. And the recall will be successful because now all of the Democrats will all be voting for a recall.
In other words, okay, so you're saying that Democrats, if they don't feel they had somebody in the election,
if it was 2 Republicans,
if it was just 2 Republicans, that would immediately motivate them to recall.
Absolutely. They would do it no matter what. Absolutely. It's going to happen the following day. And they would be successful just because of numbers for that election. And we can't have that. So it has to be me, which I'm going to win the primary, and then it's going to be a Democrat, which it's like a 95 percentile chance that it was going to be a Democrat anyway. And then we know we're going to win that because the Democrat agenda, the Democrat platform is completely indefensible in California right now. So we're going to have as many debates as possible. They're not going to want to do any. We're going to have one a week if we can. And we're going to do nothing but talk about the failures of California and how we need a different path. And the different path is not voting for the same thing. So that's how we're going to get the moderate Democrats to vote for me in the November election, because they don't want to be socialist either. They don't believe in the ridiculousness that's happening. And this is privately in the voting booth. That's how they're going to make their.
So I think going before the primary, you talk about stuff like guns and immigration and that sort of thing. After the primary, I would say that the emphasis has to be on different political,
of course,
issues.
It's taxes, it's education, it's regulation. We're talking about them now. I don't necessarily, surprisingly, once in a while I'll get asked questions about guns. I think, and maybe it's a little bit skewed because people already know, so they don't ask. Um, they just assume what the answer is going to be if it's a gun question, just because based on history.
Mhm.
But that doesn't come up a lot. People can't afford gas. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford a house. They can't. Everything is bad. They don't want to send their kids to public school, and they can't afford private. It's everything is bad, and that's what everyone wants to talk about, and that's what the Democrats don't want to talk about.
Right. Well, one of the things that's clearly a problem in California is all these businesses moving out. And that's one of the things that
Yeah.
these businesses moving out, it's getting harder for business to stay here. The California has become so anti-business that they've said that, I saw a recent thing in Fox, that because of all these businesses moving, that it's unavoidable. California is going to slide into even worse than what we are now, because these businesses, as they continue to leave, the momentum of bringing people back won't be able to catch up with the landslide
Yeah.
of it if it going down. So I know one of the things that you're pro business and bringing all these businesses back, and you don't want your friends to leave California. One of the big things that we've often talked about is gas and oil in California. All these refineries are leaving. How do you bring all these businesses back?
All of the regulations just get removed. If you ask a business, they're only leaving because of taxes and regulation.
Have you
So you remove regulation.
any businesses
Tons.
saying, "Hey, like, just wait, be patient because
Oh yeah,
help is coming"?
I'll tell you, almost everywhere I talk, someone is saying, "I own a restaurant, or I own a sporting goods store, or I own something, and I just can't do it here. We're leaving. We're either going to lose my business, or I'm moving my business. I have a good business. We're just going to pick it up and move it and go somewhere else. I'm being recruited by another state. That happens all the time, and a lot of them come up and say, I'm only staying until November. If you don't win in November, then we're leaving."
I had actually a co-host earlier today who just started a business here, and she's a seven-figure business already. She said if you don't win, she has to leave.
Yeah.
She has to leave.
It's the regulation and the taxes are just driving businesses out of the state. And the beauty of the fix and how easy it's going to be is regulations just get signed away. Regulations just get suspended. The governor has a lot of power. Newsom could today make our lives better here in California. He doesn't want them better. He doesn't. They like the regulation. The regulation generates fees. That's more money. That's more money for them to abuse. They don't have to save money. They just keep getting more money through the regulatory process with fees.
Right.
So I think move on. Should we move on?
Sure, of course.
I think that I know I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what has been talked about ad nauseum, and that is this BLM incident. It was fairly soon after you got elected. I think you had only been elected for about a year.
2020 was a year.
About a year. You'd been in office a year, and man, the entire world shut down and then exploded. And
Started with COVID. I mean, we were right in the middle of COVID and then went into civil unrest.
So I really, the video and what happened is so clear to me, and it's not clear to some people. And I think a lot of people out there are using it against you. There are people that don't like you for whatever reason. They don't like you politically. They don't like you personally. I don't know. But they're using this against you rather than really truly portraying an accurate picture of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to convince those people.
Right.
But there are people out there that are looking at the video and going, hey, wait a minute, I'm not comfortable with that. And I wanted to figure out what's the actual, how do we get to the heart of the matter? Like, what's the actual heart of the matter there? And I think if you'd let me for just a minute, talk about what I think the issue is, and then correct me if I'm wrong or comment on it. I think that there is, it's a phrasing, it's a terminology issue. You were front and center at a potential riot, which, by the way, I've never seen a sheriff of a county stand front and center and say, hey, I'm going to sit here and negotiate this thing. I'm going to be in front.
For about 5 hours.
I've never seen a sheriff do that. Commendable right off the bat. And you're not thinking about your political future. You're not thinking about politics at all. You're thinking about, hey, how do I keep people safe here? How do I keep this thing from exploding? And you had a communication with one of their leaders, the BLM, Black Lives Matter, one of their leaders.
There were three main ones.
Three main ones. And you're talking with them and you're communicating with them in an attempt to prevent a horrible, situation from happening. And at some point, there was give and take. And I remember you were saying, like, look, we can't, I can't just not enforce the curfew. The curfew's here, so you got to deal with it. I'm paraphrasing again. But at some point, he said, hey, will you pray with me? And you essentially said, I can. Yeah, let's take a knee and pray together. I can't demand my men and women to do the same, but let's do it. So you literally got on a knee to pray. And what has been distorted is people are using the phrase that you bent the knee.
Yeah.
And what that means, that has a very specific
connotation,
definition even.
Yes.
When you bend the knee to somebody, it's not even necessarily literally meaning that you get down on a knee. It means that you are, excuse me, you're recognizing that their authority, or you're giving up, or you're somehow aligned with them. And it's a very old phrase. You weren't bending the knee to BLM.
Right.
You got literally on a knee to pray with them, and to try to connect with them in order to prevent a riot. And I think people are seeing that and going, hey, you bent the knee. Meanwhile, you arrested people that day from BLM. I dare say that your comments after do not sit well with BLM. I don't think you're friends with BLM. You don't align yourself politically with BLM. There's no evidence that I've seen that you bent the knee to BLM just because you got on a knee to pray to God.
Right.
Am I describing, that seems to be the heart of the matter and the misunderstanding. Am I describing that well, or?
I think you are. So just a couple of clarifications of timing and everything else we had been going back and forth because there were minor issues that were starting to pop off. We had told them I had told them going in, it's a zero tolerance. As soon as this leads from a protest into any type of violence, into a riot, we are ending it, and we are going to end it quickly with massive amounts of force. And so they knew that. And so over this 4 hours, and I need to point out that not everybody in that crowd was bad. There were some of my friends, there were family members that were in that crowd. Was I angry at them? Absolutely I was, because that is a crowd fighting against law enforcement. BLM was an anti-law enforcement, what we know now, domestic terrorist organization. But we were dealing with that for hours. And then as it got toward the end, I told them, okay, and for the curfew, we let them go later. We actually let them go later because it came time for curfew, and it was very, very odd. They knew something was going to happen at curfew. And so it was almost like they were preparing for battle when the curfew happened. Everything got quiet. They're just sitting there staring at us, and we did nothing. We had already told the deputies, we're all wearing radios. So the deputies all knew, just stand down, wait for us to give the commands of whatever it is we're doing. And so then they approached me, and I said, look, you guys everything is fine. Yes, it's past curfew, so we will end it anytime. But right now, everybody is fine. There's no violence. It really wasn't even horrific. There's individuals that were swearing and yelling and demeaning us and everything else. But we let them go for probably maybe close to an hour after curfew. And then the first bottle got thrown. And so I pulled him to the side and I said, it's over. It's done. We're giving you this is an unlawful assembly now. We're going to announce it, and then we're going to give you the 20 minutes, and then we are going to forcibly remove everyone.
And to be crystal clear and repetitive, when you and a couple of your guys hit a knee, you were down there to pray to God.
That's when that happened. They asked me, they thanked me for everything that we had done. Thanked us. They thanked my deputies for how professional their deputies were. And they even made mention of, because we know it wasn't nice to them. It was brutal to them. And they were, I am unbelievably proud of how the deputies handled themselves, because it's amazing that one of them didn't go off to one of those protesters, and it didn't happen. I am super proud of them. So now it's ending. And when I told him it was over, he thanked us, told me what a great job they did. He told me where all of the hot spots were going to happen when we were moving it. He gave us a description of the weapons that were going to be used against us. He told us what the people that he believed were involved, what they were dressed like. And then he asked us, he's like, hey, I know this is going to be bad. Can we pray for the safety of your deputies?
But there was nobody on BLM. You don't think he was under the illusion in any way that you were aligning or
Never.
Or
he knew we were going to get violent very quickly.
But as far as going on a knee, that wasn't. He didn't think, hey, they're submitting to us, or they're aligning to us, or they're somehow signaling acceptance or approval for BLM.
No.
Was he under any illusion that was what you were doing?
Zero. So what he did is he asked if we could pray. I said yes. I said I can't force anybody. So I asked the deputies and the ones that were around there. I said I can't force you. If you guys want to pray, you can pray. He asked the crowd, and some of them, and it was not to pray. It was, we're going to kneel to pray. And some in the crowd were yelling, saying, one person I remember in particular said, I'd never kneel with a murderer, which is referring to cops as being murderers. And it's like, and I even told him, I'm like, come on, that's ridiculous. And so he asked people, and if you look, there were also members of the crowd. When did that ever happen? If you're talking about kneeling to BLM, that wouldn't have happened. Were they kneeling to me? We were kneeling to pray. Bottom line.
And there were other political leaders in the following months, locally, federally, who did in fact go on a knee, and they were, by the very definition, both literally and by definition, they were bending the knee to BLM.
Right.
But that is not what was going on in Riverside County with Sheriff Bianco.
And why did we not hear about it for 5 years, if that's what happened? Because at the time, everybody knew what happened.
Right.
The protesters all there knew what happened. The 1,200 deputies there, or 900, 300 other cops, they all knew what happened. That was not acquiescing to BLM. It was not giving into BLM. It was, we prayed with them. And then right after that, we physically removed them from Riverside.
And let's say it did happen. Let's say that is what you did. That was your motivation, and that's exactly what did it gain you? What are they claiming it gained you? You know, there doesn't seem to be. So people that criticize you and say that you bent the knee, if you did that, you didn't gain anything from that. It's not like, they claimed, they didn't even claim you bent the knee to BLM. You know what I mean? They didn't gain any kind of actual victory on this.
Because there wasn't one. There wasn't one. They know what it was. So we physically removed them from Riverside. With an overwhelming show of force, of law enforcement force. There were no injuries reported. There were no buildings damaged, looted, nothing. No injuries to deputies. It was an amazing, amazing night. And it was because we were 100% on the offensive, and we were overpowering them because they were breaking the law.
It's a lot of cities can't say that. La Mesa down in San Diego can't say that.
Yeah.
There were parts of Oakland and the Bay Area, they can't say that. And this was the same time period, the same types of activists, the same thing. And
LA was still burning. And I had a conversation with that sheriff, and I told him, I'm like, look, it worked for us. You guys got to do this. We gave them everything. Why? Everybody was looking for pepper balls and everything else after that, because they all started using all of the less lethal munitions that we have to dispel crowds. And we were overwhelmed, or they were overwhelmed. We were already done, thank goodness. But it worked. It took LA 3 or 4 days because they had gone several days without doing anything, and then they had to catch up. So I want to point out that it's the same groups are still going. I hope everybody realizes, and I think they do, that these are paid protesters that, and it's a BLM is still out there, just not BLM anymore. It's all the same people on Instagram and everything else. And we've infiltrated all of their groups. We have live people in their groups, and we have social media pages in their groups. And when those same protesters are now fighting for ICE in LA, They move into Riverside. They start scheduling their Riverside ones. And before it happened here, as we're leading up to the weekend when they were going to have their Riverside protests, those same organizers start posting in those groups warnings that you guys are going to Riverside County, and Riverside County is controlled by Sheriff Chad Bianco, and we can't help you there. Do not contact a deputy wearing tan and green. Do not go around any county buildings. We would advise you just to stay away. So if I was a fan of theirs and I was on their side, why would they be doing that?
So it worked.
Yeah, it absolutely
fighting back worked.
It absolutely did. We showed how you're supposed to handle those situations. And I'll be very honest with you, in hindsight, I don't know if I thought about it at the time, but while I was there and what I was doing, I was not only leading the 1,200 cops, I was leading that protest too, because everything I was doing there was controlling their behavior too. So it is in hindsight, you look back, it's like, who do you want as a leader there? And so the people that are criticizing me weren't there. I mean, it's all great for you to say what you would have done had you not been at home in the safety of your living room, but you weren't there. You don't know what happened. You don't know what the context was. You don't know what was being said. And I want to say that I think that why there are so many people that are just, that I know there are people that are ardent supporters of mine that are saying, yeah, never. And it's the political situation that we find ourselves in, because we have allowed ourselves to be completely manipulated with emotion. When you are emotionally charged, there is no ability for your brain for rational thought. It's chemically, mentally, biologically impossible. So when you say bend the knee, that provokes that emotional response of, oh, and then you don't even think, well, wait a minute, that completely goes against everything he stands for, what he says. You're not rationally thinking about that. And I think that's why those people are not. The other ones that say, wait a minute, I kind of got a different view from that video, or that's not what I saw. Those are the ones that didn't get emotionally charged by the whole bending the knee statement. And I think it's unfortunate, because I can give the answer till I'm blue in the face, and then that emotionally charged says, no, he's lying.
Yeah, but I think clarifying and separating the reality of being on a knee to pray to God,
Yeah,
and the terminology of he bent the knee, I think it's something that hasn't been done thoroughly enough.
you're totally correct.
And I think the emotion is understandable. I get it. But I think that explaining it in that way and kind of that logic side, we're not going to convince the people who dislike you for, if they're using it for political reasons and they're trying to hurt you and they don't really care about it and they're just trying to hurt, not going to convince them. But the people that are going, hey, wait a minute, what is this all about? Those logical people who hear like, okay, I get it. I see the difference between what happened and what's being said happened. I think those people can respond.
As a former department member, I was there during those times, and I actually appreciated your leadership in that. But what I'm hearing is actually kind of a common theme, not only with CCW and the riots, but you provided a blueprint for all these other agencies, and they just they fail to follow, right? So you're providing these answers to LA. They continue to burn. So for those that say, like, oh, you're, not suited to be governor, I absolutely disagree. I think you've provided the leadership, not only in Riverside County, but to these other agencies. And I think that you can continue that through the entire state of California. So I appreciate that.
Did any of your colleagues at all see that video and say he bent the knee and he's,
I think
did
that
anybody, was anybody under that impression?
So, absolutely. Absolutely. I think with a department as large as he runs, there are people in the department that don't support him, right? They're part of the old regime, or that, they had this, but the vast majority, I would probably say 90-95% support, right? There's always going to be those underliers that say, yeah, no, like he's not good for the department.
But by and large,
absolutely. I think the vast majority of people respected what he did. And it really allowed us to kind of get behind a leader right? Something that we hadn't had in our department, someone that we could say, oh, hey, you know, we're confident. That's what you really want, is someone that you look to and say, no matter what happens, I know he's going to make the best.
California is there is such a vacuum of leadership.
So in the absence of leadership, someone has to step in, and that's, we've talked about this before. Is like the failures in the state of California. He didn't want to, and from my understanding, absolutely run for governor. It's because like there's no leadership here, so he has to run for governor. Right? That's kind of how I see it, because there's a lack of leadership. And I know you've talked about that before, is I have to run for governor, because if not, the state's going to fall into even more despair.
I think I'm a regular person. I think I'm just a husband, a dad, and, a grandpa. And
the new grandpa, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fifth one, brand new fifth one.
Oh, your fifth one. Oh, yeah. Wow. Holy cow. Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's all great. But that's who I am.
A lot of Biancos, my friend.
It is. But that's who I am. I just go to work and I do something else. But so I still think about California. I still think about the governor, and I still think about the Congress or our legislature. I want what I think everybody else wants. I want to be able to look to Sacramento and be able to trust the people that are there. Excuse me, to be doing the right thing for me. I want to know that they're being honest. I want to know that they have integrity. I want to know that they have values. And I want a leader to be leading that building to be doing the right thing. And we haven't had that. We don't have that. And it hasn't been for a long time. And I think that's the appeal that I think a lot of people are looking for that. They just want a leader to go in and do the right thing and lead California in a better direction. And that's the void I think that I'm filling in this race, is that I stand out from every single other candidate because they've never been in a position to be a leader. They don't know how to be a leader, or they're just career politicians.
Who, in your opinion, is the last leader of California? The actual person that really looked out for the best interest of California, not the special interests.
I mean, leadership ability. I've said this before, and I'll just have to say it again. Is probably for a governor for leadership, it was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was recruited to even run because of his leadership ability in where he was in his professional life, private life. He had the ability to lead people of different beliefs
across the aisles.
Yes. And so that's why he was recruited to run for that position. He didn't want to. They talked him into doing it. And we know how that ended. I mean, he was a fantastic leader for what he went through here. And then obviously when he got in the presidential stage. So I would have to say him. Now, with that being said, I think I look at his leadership ability as president, and that stands out more than California, because I wasn't in California. I mean, that was a long time ago. He was elected governor when I was born. So it's been 50 years. And so, I mean, I could be the next one that's put in that position because of leadership ability. And I was not here during the 80s with Duke Majan and Pete Wilson. And those were good governors. We had good governors and good things came out of it. So, but I can't speak to their leadership ability. But since then, it's not. We elect celebrities, and we elect career politicians, and we elect the anointed next politician, and cute and good hair or whatever the case may be. Those are the requirements. It's not integrity, and it's not values, and it's not leadership ability.
Who do you like? Is there anybody in the political scene in California that you're fond of or that you relate to?
For various reasons. I mean, there are plenty there. I mean, there are a lot of, and I'm going to have to get political. There are a lot of Democrats that I like as people. And I've told some, you're not a leader. you don't believe what you're doing, and you're going along with the agenda, and you're going along with what you're told, so you're not a leader, and you've been put in a leadership position, you should stand up and do it, and they won't. So, but I still like them as people. Some on the Republican side, Carl DeMaio. A lot of people don't like Carl, but Carl, and they may not like the way he goes about things, but Carl's doing a fantastic job.
I'm a big fan. He's done a lot for my organization. Everything I've tried to do with Second Amendment in San Diego, and I'm a big fan of his. I'm an unapologetic fan of his.
Yeah, he's doing more for the Republican Party in California than anyone has done in a very, very long time. Very long time. There's a couple of good young assemblymen and senators that are new in the game there, that are trying to find their way, that I think they're doing a good job. They're definitely doing it for the right reasons, to try and make a difference for California, for the people that they represent. And I think they're doing they go about it differently. There's a lot of different techniques going in. Some are quiet, trying to work their way in. Some are very loud, trying to work their way in. And I think in their own rights, they're doing good things.
Nice. So good.
How much time do we have? Are we?
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to kind of get to a little rapid. I know your time is very, very valuable. So if you have another question,
I was going to ask. I just wanted to go before we end it. What's something that people don't know about you? You know, I know you like guns. I know you like riding horses. I know you like.
Who are you?
You're a mustache aficionado. I know that. I know that you have 5 grandkids. What's something that people don't know about you? What's something that you get excited about or really love, or what? Give us something personal.
Oh my gosh, something personal. I don't want it to. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Like a hobby you have or a passion you have that people have no idea, or a book you love that people would never think.
I have to tell you, there are a lot of things that I like. There is nothing that I enjoy doing more. I have a lot of hobbies. None of them are fulfilling unless Denise is doing it with me.
Oh.
So there are.
Good move right before Valentine's Day. Good move.
It is. It has nothing to do with that. And I was just thinking, it's like, I don't know what I like to do. I like to travel. And then I was thinking traveling and, the hunting, fishing, the outdoors and all those things. But I had to travel yesterday without her, and it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. The entire day was there was just something off, because it wasn't the same. And it's no different in hunting or fishing or hiking or anything like that. I love being outdoors by myself, but there's something different. So I'm in a good point in my life that I got a good better half, and that's what my life's about.
That's awesome.
I know that only through social media, I see there's a lot of people excited to have her as the First Lady of California.
She's going to be a good one.
I know she is. So we're going to go through actually a few rapid fire questions, and then we'll wrap up, because I know your time is valuable. So what's your definition of freedom?
What in the heck? And that's supposed to be a rapid fire question?
Yeah.
My definition of freedom? Oh my gosh. You can't. How do you define freedom without saying you're free? Definition of freedom. I got to come back to that one.
Okay, well, let's come back to it. If there's one law that you could repeal or draw back on day one of your presidency, we're talking 8 years from now, your governorship, what would that be?
One law.
Yeah, that you would say, we're done with that law.
Rapid fire questions, I just have to tell you, are supposed to be, what's your favorite song?
Okay. How about a quote or principle you live by?
Integrity.
There you go.
Integrity.
Okay.
I have to tell you a little story, because you're killing me with the other ones. I'm going to waste time, so you can't ask any more of those 5-minute answer rapid fire questions. I teach leadership class. I did a lot when I was a deputy. I unfortunately don't get to do it now, but I get to talk to every single deputy after we hire them. And I tell them that everything in our life, everything we have, can be taken away from us. whether it's your car, whether it's a pen, whether it's your clothes, anything can be taken away from you. The only thing that can't is your integrity. Your integrity, you have to make a conscious decision to give it away. You know it was wrong. You compromised your integrity. The one thing you have that is your own, you choose to give it away. And it's easy. We all have the angel and we all have the devil. Sometimes the devil's more fun, but you got to listen to the angel saying, don't lose your integrity. And for me, I will die knowing that I have never compromised my integrity. I'm never going to embarrass God, my parents, my wife, or my kids.
I same way integrity. I people ask me all the time about that, and it's like, what's your integrity worth? Is it worth that $2 thing? Like, you're selling yourself for so cheap, like who you are. In situations like that. So integrity, it matters. I absolutely agree.
I'm going to tell you what my integrity is worth. I don't know what it is, but I know it's worth more than $8.5 million. We went to a house. We had to clear the house. There was not enough deputies. There was far too many people. And we did things that we weren't necessarily supposed to do. Clearing a house with only one person.
Sure.
And so I cleared the house.
So that's what you're talking about. It was unsafe to do so.
Well, yeah. But then I get upstairs, and inside the closet is a bag, a big duffel bag filled with cash. And I'm the only one in the house. And it's a drug house. It's all drugs. And so I go back downstairs and I said, there's a shitload of money up there. And they asked some of the people, whose money is it? Whose money is it? And they're like, don't know anything about it. Everybody denies it. That's how it works in the drug world. And so, but at the time, I'm thinking, there is absolutely no one knows but me that there is a duffel bag of money. I could have taken some. It was just taped $100 bills. I could have packed my pockets and everything else. And it was like, there is absolutely no way. It's not, my integrity is worth far more than that. So then we counted it. We had to take it back. And 3 hours later, after counting that much money, it's $8.5 million. And it's like,
but not even a thought. Like,
they would have never missed 500,000. I kind of thought that, but there is no way.
Right.
There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
And I had multiple times like that, especially with money. When you're working dope, you come across a lot of money like that. And my integrity is far worth anything. I had plenty of that vehicle stop that I said, I was not going to violate his rights. I mean, that's my integrity. I'm not going to violate somebody's constitutional rights, knowingly do it. And it isn't going to happen. I'm never going to lie. I know, there was one case in particular where I'm talking to a guy, and normally, you watch them throw the dope on the ground. Well, as I'm talking to him, I see a bag of dope on the ground, and it's like, well, I know it came from him, but I didn't see him throw it there. Could I have wrote in the report that I watched him throw it there? He threw it from, yeah, of course I could have, but I couldn't.
Right.
So I had to let him go. I took the drugs and I destroyed them. I wrote a report to destroy them, but I know they were his drugs, and I could have said they were his, but my integrity won't allow me to do that.
Good for you.
It's just, I won't do it.
I'll tell you that that story really speaks to me, because now I know that my integrity is worth $8.5 million. So I appreciate that. I didn't know that walking in, but now
you're so funny.
$8.5 million. All right.
Right. So just a couple last few questions. What do you want every Californian listen to this podcast to take away from your message here?
Yeah, I hope maybe not. It didn't come across in the message, but what I want every Californian to know is that the negativity that you're going to hear about me is just simply not true. I am a very family-oriented, God-fearing, ethical man that has spent my entire adulthood, even childhood, serving other people. That's where I get my joy, is from making someone else's life better. And while I may come across as this hard, I'm vocal and everything else, that's not me. I cry at commercials. I mean, Denise makes fun of me constantly because, it's horrible sometimes. I won't go to movies anymore because it just doesn't work out well. I have a huge heart.
Yeah.
I have a heart for other people. And I wish people really understood that, to the point where, why am I doing this? It's certainly not for me. I don't want to retire and then die the next year.
Right.
And I'm getting to that retirement age. I could retire and go live comfortably, a healthy, good retirement.
Sure.
But I am doing this because I know I can make Californians' lives better. I'm doing it for everybody else and for everybody else's kids. It's certainly not a benefit to Chad.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. How can the 2A community support you? Like, what can
Number one is vote.
Right.
The elections are about money and they're about votes, and I need both. If you can afford to donate money to the campaign, that's how we reach the people that I haven't reached yet.
So how do we do that? How do everybody watching, how do we go out there and support you?
The absolute easiest is biancoforgovernor.com. You can sign up to help in the campaign, to volunteer. You can sign up to donate. We've got some fantastic merch that you can buy: t-shirts, coffee cups, hats. We've got some pretty cool stuff online, and every little bit helps. The stuff that you buy from us online is 100% donation to the campaign. It's going directly to help us. We need the help. We need, volunteers. We need people making calls and knocks and all of those things. And it's, don't think that you can't help, because you can.
Right. Anything else?
It's awesome. I really appreciate you guys including me in this. This was
absolutely
great conversation.
Yeah. So I want to thank Michael for being here and contributing. Fantastic job. But certainly thank you for being here and taking the time. So everybody that's watching, thank you for watching our podcast, The Warrior's Way. We're going to continue to do more things like this in the future. So look out for our future podcasts. Thank you for stopping by.